You've done everything right. The soil is prepped, the vines are sturdy, and clusters of bright yellow flowers are appearing exactly where they should. But then you check the garden a few days later. The flowers are gone from the vine. Instead, they're shriveled up, detached, and lying in the dirt. Despite perfect sunlight, plenty of water, and rich soil, the plant goes through the entire effort of blooming but refuses to yield a single tomato. When this happens, it's easy to assume the plant is dying, but there are no pests chewing the leaves and no fungal diseases spreading. These fallen blossoms aren't actually a sign of failure. They represent a functional shift, a point where the plant begins prioritizing its own survival over the production of fruit. To see why a plant would make that trade, we have to look inside a single healthy blossom. Tomatoes are self-pollinating. Each flower contains both male pollen-producing stamens and the female receiver, the pistil, wrapped together. Despite being millimeters apart, pollen cannot cross the gap alone. It requires kinetic energy to knock it loose, dropping down the tube to the stigma. In nature, this happens through sonication. When bumblebees grip the flower and vibrate their wing muscles, they hit the frequency needed to dislodge the pollen. There is a strict biological timer running. Once the flower opens, this transfer must happen within about 50 hours, or the flower expires. This makes the tomato blossom a fragile mechanical system. Even a slight shift in the environment can stop the physical process required to create fruit. That shift usually comes in the form of a hostile microclimate, like a sudden heat wave or a cold snap. This thermometer shows how narrow the window is. If daytime temperatures exceed 90 degrees, the pollen becomes sterilized. If nights drop below 55 degrees, the pollen stays trapped inside the flower. Humidity also acts as a barrier. Air that is too wet causes pollen to clump, while air that is too dry prevents it from sticking to the stigma. Fertilizer and water play a role too. High nitrogen feeds push leaf growth instead of flower production, while inconsistent watering destabilizes roots. Underneath these factors, the plant is constantly balancing its budget. Developing a tomato requires a massive, sustained expenditure of nutrients and water. When the environment becomes too harsh, the plant enters triage. It evaluates resources and actively severs its connection to the unviable flower. Blossom drop is an act of resource management. The vine sacrifices its potential fruit to ensure the primary plant has enough energy to stay alive. The yellow petals on the garden soil are no longer just a sign of failure. They are early warning signals. The plant is indicating that the local microclimate is currently off balance. If natural pollinators are missing, you can intervene by pressing a battery-powered toothbrush against the stem, simulating a bee's frequency to trigger sonication manually. During heat waves, shade cloth can physically lower the ambient temperature, keeping the pollen within its viable biological bandwidth. Switching to a balanced fertilizer avoids the excess nitrogen trap, while deep, infrequent watering encourages a more resilient root system. By meeting these mechanical and environmental needs, you provide the signal that it is safe for the plant to invest its resources. The intact flowers can finally transition into fruit. You can't change the weather, but by understanding the biological limits and stress responses of your plants, you can adjust the environment to secure a harvest.